Hey guys, so unfortunately today the lighting is not very good, but hopefully the sound will be good because I just bought a voice recorder. So I hope you'll enjoy the increase of quality. Today what I wanted to talk about is the use of subtitles with TV shows or movies because I think it's a very useful tool to improve your language skills. Personally, as I mentioned in my video where I talked about how I learned English, I'll put some links there and in the description. Using TV shows and movies with subtitles has been something that was very useful for me to learn English. In this video, I'll talk about some tips and guidance to help you use subtitles in a way that is efficient, because if you do it wrong, using subtitles might actually just be a waste of time. I mean, in terms of language learning. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that you need to have a fairly good grasp of the language before hoping to make the most of subtitles in TV shows or movies. And by this, I don't mean you should have a very high level in the language or be perfectly fluent. What I mean is that you should at least master the basics. So you should be able to know basic grammar. You should have a fairly good range of vocab, especially everyday vocab. Unless, of course, you're watching a TV show that uses very basic English, such as maybe kid TV show or some cartoons, etc., that kind of stuff. But if you're watching more like adult TV shows, then you will definitely need some basics in the language. I guess the level you could go for would be at least B1, B2. That's my opinion anyway. And the reason why I say this is because TV shows are originally meant for native speakers, not non-native speakers like me, for example. So that means that when, whoever writes the dialogues, they won't, think about whether the dialogue is not too complicated for foreigners or people that are learning the language. No, they don't really care about this. That's why it's important that there isn't a big gap between the level of English or whatever language used in the TV show and your own level. And this gap will vary from one TV show to another. An example that I always use all the time is Desperate Housewives. For me, I could easily keep up with an episode of Desperate Housewives without needing subtitles. However, if you show me an episode of Game of Thrones, I might occasionally struggle, although I will still be able to understand most of what's happening, but it will be more challenging. I mean, it's an exaggeration to compare these two shows, but I think you get the idea. So second point I want to make in this video is that you need to make sure you choose a TV show that is level appropriate. Don't go around watching very scientific or historical TV shows because they just might be out of your reach for now. So instead, I suggest personally that you watch more comedy drama, soap operas kind of TV shows because they usually use vocabulary that's everyday vocabulary, which is usually what you want to learn in your language. You want to learn the everyday conversational vocabulary. And usually you can guess the meaning of the words or grammar based on the context because they're very visual in that sense. But what is nice is that even though the level of English will be easier than other TV shows, it should still be challenging enough that you will learn and encounter new words or grammar structures, which is what you want. I actually think that's the sweet spot you want to aim for when you watch TV shows with subtitles. You want to be comfortable enough that you can understand about, let's say, 60-70% of what characters are saying, but you also want to be in that level where you still don't understand everything, and that's, I think, where learning happens. If you understand most of it, you can sometimes guess the words in context, so that's something that's quite interesting with TV shows. The third point I wanted to talk about is do not use dubbed content. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of you wouldn't do that anyway, but if you're thinking of doing it, I don't think it's a good idea. The reason is, even though the language you will hear will be the language you're interested in, the downside of that is that you will be missing out on the context in which the film or the TV show has been produced and recorded, etc. You would indeed practice the language, but you would be missing out on the context in which it's been done. And I think it's a shame because a lot of what people say is very situational. So it's important to have that cultural context. I hope that makes sense what I'm explaining. If not, do drop a comment and I will try to make it a bit clearer. Okay, number 4, don't try to remember every word or structure that you don't know when you watch a TV show. This is very important. I'm saying this especially for those that are tempted to write down every single word they do not know, or they will be stopping the TV show all the time to look up the translation of the words, that kind of stuff. If you do that, it will be very tedious and boring and you will probably just give up. And also, if you try to learn too much vocab, then you will probably end up not trying to learn anything because it's way too much. I mean, no one can learn lists and lists of words. I mean, maybe some people, but I'm guessing most of you wouldn't be able to do that. So please do not do that. Instead, try to find a balance between writing down all the words and not writing any words at all. Maybe every now and then write a word or an expression that you find useful, or a phrase that you think, oh, it's good to know, I could use it with some friends or whatever. So let's have an example. So in a TV show, let's say you come across the phrase, oh, what a shame. Being able to say what a shame is something that's quite useful. You know, you can use it with friends, you can use it at work, so it's quite useful. However, don't try to learn, silly stuff like, and I'm going to read this, spare me with your false courtesies, Lord Stark, there's a brothel outside of these walls. This is a quote from Game of Thrones. But you get the picture. If you try to learn things like that, it won't be very useful and you will probably never use them. I hope you know what I mean. At the end of the day, I think TV shows should be used to get you used to the rhythm of the language, to get used to the grammar and hearing words in context, and see how native speakers use these words and structures. Of course, even if you don't actually actively write down words, you will still be able to remember some words every now and then, you know, especially the ones that come up quite a lot. So number 5, use subtitles. I know a lot of people are against subtitles because they think that if you're using subtitles then you're not really learning, but I think actually you can learn. Definitely for me it's been a useful way to improve my English skills. The way I did it though was that I started with subtitles in French while watching something in English. It was useful because I wasn't used to watching TV shows in English, so I didn't want to be too lost, and I think you should do the same if it's the first time you do it. You know, just read the subtitles, get used to the rhythm of the language, try to listen out for what the characters say. Let's call it active listening, so actively listen to what the characters are saying and try to remember a little bit of what you hear. And then once you're comfortable with this and you've been watching TV shows for a couple of weeks, months, whatever is comfortable for you, then I do advise you move on to watching your TV shows with the subtitles in the target language. So basically there are transcripts of what the characters are saying. And then when you start using subtitles in the target language, you will see it's quite a step up from watching a TV show with subtitles in your native language, but it's good practice. At the beginning, don't be worried too much if you don't understand everything. You probably won't, and that's perfectly fine. Just kind of get used to it. It will take some time for your brain and yourself to get used to it, but eventually you will be used to it and you will learn a lot of words. The way you have to do it, again, similarly to what I just said before, is to actively listen. Don't just read, otherwise you might as well just read a book. Try to read and listen as well at the same time. There's 2 advantages of using subtitles in the target language. First of all, you will get used to the spelling of the words, and second, you will associate also the sounds with the writing, which is really good, especially if you want to practice your pronunciation. When you will be speaking, you will try to remember the words as they were pronounced, and hopefully that will help you to remember how they were pronounced and therefore improve your pronunciation. That definitely helped me personally. So now you might ask me how to use subtitles with TV shows. Well, you can use Netflix. Netflix is very good for that. I mean, I know it's not available for all languages, so I think it will disappoint some of you. But for English, French, Spanish, etc., it's very good for that. And usually the quality of the transcriptions and subtitles are very good. I've tried them myself. Another way that you can use is a bit more illegal, so I will not go into too much detail about this. So if you can, download the video and find a website where you can download the subtitles and add the subtitles to the video. I will link some websites for subtitles in the description below, and they are websites that I've used myself. And finally, the last point I want to make is do not only use TV shows and hope for a miracle. What I mean by that is something that I kind of explained in one of my former videos about 3 concepts for language learning. I will link this here and in the description, is to use variety. If you only use TV shows, then you will be good at listening, probably reading as well, because you will be using subtitles potentially, but your speaking and your writing won't necessarily be good. And it's important to remember that, because if you only spend your time doing one activity, you will only focus on one aspect of language learning. And therefore, for example, your grammar might be weak because you wouldn't have, properly studied the grammar, or maybe your speaking will be a bit weak as well. So it's very important to do a variety of tasks. Using TV shows, if you do decide to go with it, is a great way to learn, but it's not the only way to learn. So it's important that it's part of your language learning routine, but it's not the whole of it, if that makes sense. I will say this though, TV shows are great because they're usually quite addictive, so it's a nice way to motivate you because it will make you want to go back to watching it and therefore practice regularly. So do watch TV shows, they're great for you. To finish this video, I kind of want to conclude and say that do watch TV shows. They are very useful for you to learn your language and they will give you a lot of exposure, especially if you don't have the opportunity to go to the country where the language you're learning is spoken. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it was useful, do consider subscribing because I will be posting more videos like this in the future. And I actually have some already like that in my channel, so do check it out. Anyway, so I'll see you later. Bye!